My dear friends, in life, we often try to change our circumstances, fix the people around us, or rearrange the world to suit our expectations. But have you ever noticed, despite all these efforts, life still doesn't feel the way we want it to? The truth is simple, yet powerful. Your life doesn't change when the world changes. Your life begins to transform the moment your thoughts change. Every day, from the moment we open our eyes, our mind begins narrating stories. Stories about who we are, what we can do, what might happen, and what we should fear or pursue. Most people don't even realize that these stories quietly build the framework of their entire life. When the inner narrative is filled with doubt, fear, or limitation, life automatically starts to shrink. Opportunities look risky, challenges feel impossible, and even small setbacks appear like permanent failures. But when the narrative is empowering, hopeful, and aligned with our true potential, everything begins to expand. The same situations feel different, the same problems become manageable, and the same dreams appear reachable because the mind has changed the script playing inside. The stories we tell ourselves not only shape our confidence, but also our identity. If someone repeatedly tells themselves, "I'm not good enough," they eventually behave as if it's true, even when it isn't. The mind starts filtering reality to support that belief, noticing every small mistake as proof and ignoring every success as coincidence. But if a person tells themselves, "I am capable of learning, growing, and improving," their actions begin to reflect that possibility. They approach challenges with courage instead of fear, and every experience becomes a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. The story becomes the source of strength instead of a source of suffering. What makes inner storytelling so powerful is that it operates even when we're unaware of it. Thoughts become repeated thoughts become beliefs, and beliefs quietly shape the decisions that determine the course of our life. By consciously rewriting the narrative, we reclaim the power we unknowingly gave away. Instead of letting old memories, comparison, or criticism dictate the script, we start choosing thoughts that align with the person we want to become. This shift doesn't magically remove obstacles, but it gives us the mindset required to face them with clarity and resilience. When you transform the inner story from limitation to possibility, your choices begin to reflect confidence instead of hesitation. Your energy starts to match growth instead of resistance. Your interactions become more positive, your decisions more intentional, and your life more aligned with your values. Slowly, the world outside begins to mirror the world inside because the script guiding your actions is no longer written by fear, but by purpose, awareness, and self-belief. From the moment we step out into the world each day, we are surrounded by situations that we cannot fully manage or predict. People behave in unexpected ways, circumstances shift without warning, and life often unfolds in ways that don't align with our plans. Trying to control everything outside of us becomes exhausting, and yet many of us fall into that trap. We want people to agree with us, situations to favor us, and life to flow according to our script. But the world has its own rhythm, its own timing, and its own complexity. The more we try to force it, the more frustrated and drained we become. The real power lies not in trying to manipulate the external world, but in learning to guide our inner world with clarity and awareness. When we understand that the direction of the mind is within our control, everything begins to change. Instead of allowing external chaos to dictate our inner peace, we become the ones who decide how to respond. Two people can face the exact same situation. One collapses under pressure while the other rises above it. The difference is not the situation, but the inner orientation. A mind trained to stay steady, calm, and purposeful does not get easily shaken by life's uncertainties. It chooses how to think, what to focus on, and where to direct its energy rather than being pulled in every direction by circumstances. Controlling the direction of the mind does not mean suppressing emotions or pretending everything is perfect. It means acknowledging reality while deciding the mindset with which we will move through it. When disappointment comes, instead of spiraling into self-blame, the mind can choose to learn. When someone's words hurt us, Instead of reacting impulsively, the mind can choose patience. When plans fail, instead of giving up, the mind can choose to adapt. This ability to steer our thoughts with intention becomes the foundation of emotional resilience and inner strength. As we practice this inner discipline, we begin to notice how much of our suffering was created not by situations, but by the thoughts we attach to them. The world outside may remain unpredictable, but the world inside becomes more stable, centered, and grounded. Instead of being pushed around by circumstances, we become guided by purpose. Instead of being controlled by reactions, we become led by awareness. And slowly, the mind becomes a compass, pointing toward clarity, growth, and peace, no matter what is happening around us. Our thoughts have a direct influence on the emotional climate we live in every single day. When the mind is left unchecked, jumping from fear to overthinking to unnecessary worry, it naturally creates emotional turbulence. It becomes difficult to feel peaceful when the inner space is filled with storms of doubt, irritation, or anxiety. Many people assume that their emotions come from what others say or do, but in reality, emotions arise from the thoughts we attach to those situations. The situation may be neutral, but the interpretation we give it is what creates the emotional intensity. This is why two individuals can experience the same event but feel completely different inside. Because one person's thoughts magnify the problem while the other person's thoughts help them remain steady. Uncontrolled thoughts often exaggerate difficulties and minimize strengths. A simple comment from someone can trigger overthinking. A small mistake can turn into a mental replay of self-criticism, and an uncertain future can start to look like a disaster waiting to happen. When the mind keeps fueling these thoughts, emotions become more volatile and we start reacting impulsively rather than responding wisely. In this state, peace becomes temporary and fragile because it depends entirely on external situations being calm instead of internal stability being strong. But when thoughts are guided with awareness, the emotional landscape begins to shift. A disciplined mind doesn't suppress thoughts, it filters them. It distinguishes between what is helpful and what is harmful, what deserves attention and what should be released. With this clarity, emotions become more balanced and predictable. Challenges are still present, but they don't produce the same level of inner disturbance. Instead of drowning in fear, the mind chooses courage. Instead of clinging to anger, it chooses understanding. Instead of spiraling into worry, it chooses trust. These choices slowly build a reservoir of inner peace that cannot be easily shaken. A stable emotional life is not the result of a perfectly controlled environment, but the result of a well-managed mind. When thoughts are aligned with clarity and purpose, emotions follow the same direction. They become reflections of inner strength rather than reactions to outer chaos. Over time, this creates a deep sense of calm that supports better decision-making, healthier relationships, and greater personal growth. The world outside may still present challenges, but the stability within becomes a constant anchor, protecting us from emotional turbulence and guiding us toward a state of lasting peace. Every belief we hold today was once a simple thought, just a faint whisper in the mind that repeated itself, often enough to become a part of our identity. This is the quiet but powerful process through which the mind shapes who we become. When a thought appears once, it might not affect us deeply, but when the same thought keeps returning, the mind begins to see it as truth. Over time, the thought becomes familiar, and familiarity becomes belief. This is why the thoughts we allow to repeat in our mind carry so much weight. They don't just influence how we feel in a moment, they shape how we see ourselves, how we act, and ultimately, how we live. When negative thoughts repeat themselves, thoughts of not being capable, not being worthy, or not being enough, they begin creating invisible boundaries around our potential. We start making decisions that reflect those limitations rather than our true abilities. We hesitate, postpone, or avoid opportunities because the mind has already convinced us that success is unlikely. Even when good things come our way, We find a way to downplay them because the mind's narrative no longer aligns with growth. Without realizing it, we begin living inside the walls built by our own repeated thoughts. On the other hand, when empowering thoughts are repeated, they start to build a completely different inner world. Thoughts like "I can learn," "I can grow," "I can handle challenges," or "I deserve good things" slowly reshape the way we interact with life. These thoughts don't instantly solve problems, but they give us the confidence to face them. They change the energy with which we take action and the courage with which we approach the unknown. Little by little, these thoughts become beliefs that support our progress rather than restrict it. The repetition of thoughts also influences our emotional responses. A mind filled with fearful thoughts triggers anxious feelings, while a mind filled with hopeful thoughts creates a sense of possibility. Our emotional experiences begin to mirror the inner dialogue we entertain. The more we choose thoughts that uplift us, the more naturally we begin to feel motivated, strong, and capable. Eventually, the repeated practice of choosing better thoughts trains the mind to default to clarity, even in difficult situations. The transformation begins not by forcing beliefs to change, but by consciously choosing which thoughts we allow to repeat. With consistent awareness, the mind can shift from patterns of limitation to patterns of empowerment. And as those empowering thoughts repeat, they become the beliefs that guide our life toward growth, purpose, and inner strength. Positive thoughts are often misunderstood as a way to avoid pain or pretend that everything is fine. But that is not their true purpose. Choosing positive thoughts doesn't eliminate the challenges in life. It changes the mindset with which we approach them. Every person encounters adversity, disappointment, and moments of uncertainty. What makes the difference is not whether the struggle exists, but how the mind interprets it. When the mind is conditioned to focus only on what is wrong, even a small obstacle feels overwhelming. But when the mind is trained to look for possibilities, solutions, and lessons, the same obstacle becomes manageable, sometimes even meaningful. Positive thinking is not about ignoring the negative. It is about refusing to be dominated by it. When difficulties arise, a positive mind doesn't deny the problem but asks, "What can I learn from this?" or "How can I grow through this?" This shift in thought does not remove the challenge, but it transforms our relationship with it. Instead of feeling defeated, we start to feel empowered. This empowerment fuels resilience, our ability to bounce back, to adapt, and to keep moving forward even when the path isn't easy. A positive mindset also influences our emotional energy. When we choose thoughts that inspire rather than discourage us, our emotional state becomes more stable and hopeful. This doesn't mean we will never feel sadness, fear, or frustration. It simply means those emotions will no longer control our decisions or define our identity. A positive thought acts like a guiding light. It keeps us from getting lost when life becomes dark. It helps us stay grounded when situations feel heavy and gives us the confidence to take the next step, even when we can't see the entire path ahead. Moreover, positive thoughts affect the way we engage with people and opportunities. Someone who thinks positively naturally communicates with kindness, handles conflicts with more calmness, and builds stronger relationships because their mind is not consumed by negativity. They see opportunities where others see limitations, and they take actions that align with growth rather than fear. Over time, this creates a cycle where positive thoughts lead to positive actions, and positive actions lead to positive outcomes, reinforcing the mindset even further. Life will always present challenges, but the thoughts we choose in response determine whether those challenges break us or build us. Positive thinking becomes a mental tool that strengthens our courage, widens our perspective, and empowers us to rise above difficulties with a sense of hope and determination. The stories we silently repeat in our mind become the blueprint of the life we eventually create. Every day, whether we realize it or not, we narrate explanations to ourselves about why things happen, who we are, what we deserve, and what our future might look like. These internal stories shape our attitudes, influence our choices, and determine the level of confidence or fear with which we move through life. When the stories are built on doubt, insecurity, or past pain, they hold us back from recognizing our true potential. But when the stories are built on awareness, strength, and purpose, they become the foundation of transformation. Most people underestimate how powerful these inner narratives are. We often think our life is shaped by circumstances, but more often it is shaped by the meaning we attach to those circumstances. Two individuals can go through the same failure. One convinces themselves that they're incapable and stays stuck, while the other tells themselves that this is a temporary setback and keeps trying. The difference is not the event, it is the story. When the story is negative, the mind becomes limited. When the story is empowering, the mind becomes unstoppable. Transforming the stories we tell ourselves requires courage and honesty. It means becoming aware of the old narratives we've been carrying. Perhaps stories from childhood, from criticism, from comparison, or from moments where we felt unseen or unheard. These stories can linger for years, quietly influencing decisions. But when we pause and question them, we realize that many of these stories are outdated, incomplete, or simply untrue. Choosing to rewrite them is an act of reclaiming our inner authority. A new story doesn't magically erase difficulties, but it gives us a new lens through which we view them. When we tell ourselves, "I can grow from this," challenges become teachers. When we tell ourselves, "I deserve good things," opportunities feel within reach. When we tell ourselves, "I am capable," our actions begin to reflect confidence instead of fear. Slowly, the new story begins to influence every part of our life: our mood, our decisions, our relationships, and our goals. Over time, these stories become the identity we live by. They shape how we show up in the world, how we handle pressure, and how we relate to ourselves. When the inner story aligns with our highest values and possibilities, life naturally starts moving in that direction. Transforming those stories is not just a mental exercise, it becomes the starting point of transforming who we are and how we experience the world. My dear friends, life may not always give us the situations we desire, but it always gives us the mind with which we can respond. And that mind, when guided with awareness, discipline, and positivity, becomes the greatest tool for transformation. We cannot always control what happens around us, but we can always choose the thoughts we cultivate within us. And those thoughts shape our emotions, they shape our actions, they shape our habits, and ultimately they shape our destiny.